Hi, this is Ofori, the digital book reader, and today I'm going to be giving you recommendations for 5 of my favorite action-packed books. These are books I've read at different times. Some of them are so old that they've actually been re-edited, and if they've been re-edited, I'll talk about the new book titles so that you can get the new book titles, even though I might be talking about the book titles that were older when I read them. These books are fast-paced. They're not deep psychological dives into anything. They're not eon-spanning political thrillers or anything like that. This isn't like the Foundation Trilogy. These are guys who know how to fight, who know how to kill, and are doing killing and fighting. So the first book is StreetLethal. StreetLethal is by Stephen Barnes. It's about a guy who, this is in the future, and this is a guy who basically was a champion zero-G fighter, and he retires and he goes back to his hood. And there are gangs in his hood, and since he was this famous person, they want him to work for them. And he just wants to be left alone. They don't like that, and hijinks ensue. Fighting, combat, people trying to take him out, him trying to take people out, all that kind of cool stuff. This is a 3-book series, and then most of the time when I'm going to be talking about series, I'll just talk about the first book. And this is, I believe, a 3-book series, but I read the first book and the second book, which I really enjoyed. But definitely StreetLethal is cool action, and for those of you who care, as a little added side benefit, this is an author of color. The next book that I'm going to be talking about is about as classic as you can get. This book you can get for free since it's out of copyright on, well, not this book, but you can always get Conan stories for free at the Gutenberg Project, which is a website that has books that are out of copyright. The only downside to older pulp type books getting them on the Gutenberg Project is that a lot of them are short stories, so you kind of have to hunt around for all the short stories. Sometimes it's worth plunking down a little bit of money just to get a collection of those short stories. And The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian is a 3-book collection of Conan stories. So I like this one just because it's a nice collection. I don't have to hunt stuff down. This is Conan. I don't know what else to say about it. Fast-paced, action, sword and sorcery, monsters, heroes, about as Conan as you can get. If you have never read a Conan book before and you are a fan of action, you will enjoy this. And the writing of it pretty well keeps up with the times. Sometimes I'll read older books or older pulp books, and the writing is kind of the writing kind of just feels a little stilted to me. This still has a decent flow to it, and so even now, every now and then I'll read a Conan story just because one nice thing about Conan is he's been done so much in popular fiction and history that it's kind of nice to see these stories of how he began, and kind of nice to see how popular fiction has kind of kept that same essence of him. But once again, if you're an action fan, it is kind of a must read. Next book is Timothy Zahn's The Cobra series. I'm really going to be the books that I would highly recommend are the first 3 in the series, which is Cobra, it's Cobra Strike, and Cobra Bargain. Now these books are very hard to get individually, but I've given links to the Cobra Trilogy on Amazon and on Google Play, which is the first 3 books. This story is about this guy who joins this group of elite guerrilla mercenaries, And what's elite about them is that they're genetically enhanced with cybernetics and stuff like that to be the ultimate soldiers. And this book is just very cool because, it is basically the $6 Million Man on steroids. And pro tip, if you have not read the original book that the $6 Million Man was based off of, I will put that information in the comments because that book is also a great book. That book is called Cyborg by Martin Caiden. It's not as fast paced, but it definitely is a nice little action book. And once again, holds up very well to the times, even though the book is as old as it is. So the next book or book series is Christopher Pike's The Last Vampire. And this book is kind of going through a little bit of a strange history because the first 3 books in the series are the books that I would recommend. They're awesome. They're super action-packed. And I should note, this is not a book for people who are super into romance or people who like the vampire Lestat. This is action. This is really more for people who like the movie Underworld, because this is action, her doing superhero-y vampire stuff, and that's why I enjoyed the book, where I'm not usually a fan of vampires. Basically, in the first book, she finds out that she's being hunted by someone, and in trying to find out who's hunting her, she connects with this young man and she ends up falling for him, and so then they become a couple, but the romance is really secondary. It's really more about the people chasing her and her fighting those people and the plot of who's trying to find out more about her, and that part is really the crux of the story. Once again, I'm a person who does not like to give away the plot of books because then the surprise is gone. But this is very action-packed. This is her more as a super-powered being than a undead seductress. And if you read the book, you'll immediately see what I mean. But this is, once again, a book I recommend. I recommend the first 3 books. You probably can't find the original 3 books as ebooks anywhere, but they took the first 3 books and they put them together into a book called Thirst, the first Thirst #1. Now he's written a whole bunch of other books in the series, but after the 3rd book, it got a little wonky. They were getting into Egyptian mythology and Zarathustra and just a bunch of stuff that kind of lost me a little bit. But the first 3 books I highly recommend if you like action, and especially if you like I said, if you like action and vampires, like the movie Underworld. There's not werewolves and stuff in it, but I just mean action-packed, super-powered, vampiric heroine type stuff. And the last book that I would recommend that's an action-packed read is Mike Resnick's The Widowmaker. First of all, low-key shout out also to Mike Resnick's book Santiago 2-book series. Amazing 2-book series. It's about this legendary character called Santiago and this guy trying to find Santiago, and it's basically it's set in the future, but it's basically a western about this guy trying to find this legendary character and all the stuff that occurs. Amazing book. If you like westerns, you will love this book. If you like science fiction, you will love this book. If you like action, you will love this book, because one of the cool things is on his journey to find out who this Santiago is, he bumps into all of these legendary mercenaries and assassins and lawmen, and it is very much a futuristic western. Once again, it's a side shout out, not in my 5 here, but since I was talking about Mike Resnick, I had to shout that book out. Okay, now back to The Widowmaker. The Widowmaker is basically about this high-tech, deadly, legendary assassin who gets this disease, and they have to put him to sleep put him in cryogenic sleep until they can find a cure. Well, they found a cure, and they wake him up. They wake him up because his cryogenic sleep, it's basically he's running out of money. And in running out of money, they did find a cure, and somebody pays for the cure, which he couldn't have afforded. And paying for the cure, he has to do a mission. And that mission is the crux of the story. And there are 3 books in this series, all excellent books. If you like, once again, fast-paced, the assassin stuff, it's a very cool book. And Mike Resnick, he is just a really good writer when it comes to these types of stories that are really, he does science fiction a lot, Mike Resnick, but really his stories are really kind of like Westerns in a way, the way they're told and the way that he does the characters. But Widowmaker, once again, like I said, 3-part series, also highly recommend. One thing, and the reason I came up with this list is one thing I realize is a lot of times when I look at book YouTubers and their recommendations for books, if it's science fiction, they usually are big fans of big galaxy spanning science fiction. Most of the time I don't see people recommending books that are just straight up action. You know, people with special abilities doing special things and showing off what they can do, and I'm a big fan of that because of my background in comics and also my background in mythology. Because, quick side note, I read mythology before I read comic books, and the reason I wanted to read comic books is I had ran out of mythology, but comic books kind of had some of the same vibes as mythology. Mythology was all about superpowers and people doing special things, and when I got to comic books, that's why I really got into it, about comic books. So if you're a person who is into comic books or mythology, you will enjoy these books thoroughly, also including the side shout outs that I gave to Cyborg and also to Santiago. Once again, I'll have the information and links to both of those books below, because, you know, they're also great books. But 5 just sounds better than 7. So this is Ofoy Murray, the digital reader, and keep reading.